Today on the channel, we've got the leader of the evil Decepticons. We've got Transformers Studios Series 86, Megatron, on Way I Got It Figured.
The way I got it figured.
What's up, figure fans? Way I Got It Figured, back with another Transformers Studios Series 86 review. This time we've got leader class Megatron, one of the most anticipated figures of this year, perhaps the most. But now it's all downhill. But we've got him. We actually picked him up at Walmart. He is making the rounds along with Mixmaster, who I keep missing by minutes. So I haven't gotten him yet. But, you know, we got Megatron here, and we're super happy about that. So, Studio Series 86 Megatron, highly controversial. So controversial, I did a video about it, which I will link to below, discussing the controversy regarding him not changing into a gun and changing into a tank, and why, unfortunately, he needs to change into a tank. But what Hasbro did to address that in this box with this Megatron. So, of course, we're going to get Megatron out. We're going to take a look at him, pose him around, compare with some other figures, and get you out of here with some final thoughts. So starting with the package, of course, you got Megatron, Transformers the movie, Studio Series, nice artwork of Megatron here in the front and his vehicle mode on the side there. Looks pretty nice. It says 54 steps to transformation. That's a lot, especially for something that I'm probably not going to transform very much, if at all. So you've got your, it continues his artwork from the front, his arm. On the back, Megatron again. 54 steps. Seems like a lot. Comes with a little miniature Megatron gun. You can store all his weapons on his back. And you got your blurb. Megatron and the Decepticons prepare to mount a surprise attack on Autobot City. So there you go. Megatron on the side. Megatron is, in my opinion, the ultimate Transformers villain. Yes, he does turn into an even worse villain, Galvatron. But, you know, just in the history of Transformers, it's always going to go back to Megatron. All right, so enough of looking at him in this box. We're going to get him out and see what we can see. All right, so we've got Megatron out of the package, and he comes with 4 accessories. He comes with his fusion cannon, which is on his arm, and his gun barrel, which really turns to a part of the tank, but it's, you know, it's his gun barrel that sticks up over his right shoulder. His laser sword that he picked up from the rubble in Transformers the movie, and then he comes with, most intriguingly, a mini version of himself for another character to hold, if you want to use that as the alt form for Megatron, which is 100% what I plan to do. There are better versions of the pistol that have been made, like Transformers Red has one, but you know, it doesn't have a peg. So like outside of a figure like maybe Coronation Starscream or something like that, you know, it's limited to what characters could use that thing. So for me, this is good enough. It's certainly better than the War for Cybertron one, which had this square peg that if you put it down in certain character hands, you had a hard time getting it back out. So That was the issue with that. I know it's not 100% ideal, but I just don't know how much detail you need to get in a pistol that's 1/20th or 30th the size of the character that he's going to shrink down. So whatever. As far as Megatron himself, when you're looking at him straight on, he looks amazing. This figure is amazing. I've been playing around with it for well over a week. Can't really put it down. It looks great. Certainly front on. We might have a little bit of an issue when we turn him in certain angles, but we'll get into that here in a bit. But as far as proportionately, he's just about right. His boots may be just a little bit thicker than they need to be, but he's got to like compress down into like a tank. So I certainly don't have not any real criticism of that. This figure looks awesome. If you want a Megatron, he looks great. There are other issues that we'll get into that sort of dampens the experience a little bit. But as a toy, same with Ultra Magnus, same with Commander Class Optimus Prime, it's just an excellent toy, especially at the leader price point. They've done a really good job of raising the quality of leader class figures with the last, few releases. Looking at Megatronus, looking at Megatronus anyway. I have a feeling Onyx Prime is going to be in that same vein. But, Megatronus and Megatron, leader class figures that have been purchased this year that aren't repaints or anything like that, like Galvatron, yeah, it's like they're better figures than what we've gotten previously with leaders. So, getting into the details of Megatron, again, he looks awesome. The evil leader of the Decepticons. Just stylistically speaking, perhaps I would prefer if he had the cartoon Decepticon logo, but I get it. Can't really have everything. But he's awesome. He has great posability. He doesn't have a lot of hollowness to him. In fact, he has the only hollowness really that he has is in his upper arm. But yeah, I mean, it's not. I really don't have very much to complain about as far as the figure proper. Where my complaint really comes in, even looking straight on, even looking straight at the figure, is the fusion cannon. I absolutely detest it. It is hideous. It just looks wrong. This light little tiny box. This is not the correct proportions of fusion cannon. But the fusion cannon is just not. I mean, I know some guys think it's okay. I just think it's hideous. But we've taken care of that, so I don't have to look at it as an eyesore. The only use that it really has to the figure is if you transform him into the tank mode, so it becomes sort of like the barrel of the tank. But since I won't be doing that, then this fusion cannon is pretty much worthless. It's so bad, in fact, that it has limited use of blast effects, which is a cardinal sin in my opinion. What do I mean by that? So you got your fusion cannon. You can't use a blast effect on it. Not with the peg. You have to essentially use a smaller. You can't use the blast out part. It does have the peg, and it is in there, but the peg is for the back barrel for when you transform it into tank mode. And of course, the barrel does have full fusion cannon, full blast effect compatibility. But this fusion cannon, it does not. In fact, I'm not even going to put it back on them because the esteemed leader of my Transformers, my area Transformers Facebook group, hooked me up with a Funbie fusion cannon. And I'll go on to further say that even this isn't 100% accurate, but it blows that thing all out the water. I certainly, uh, I mean, this is like more than tolerably good. It's really good. So for the rest of the review, Megatron will be sporting an upgraded fusion cannon that is worthy of Megatron. It has full blast effect compatibility. You can stick a blast effect in here. You can stick a blast effect in the barrel, and I'll do that in a bit. Where we have some issues with the figure is just going to be in the presentation. So, there's an uncanny valley kind of look to certain characters. When you look at this figure in the front, you can tell that aesthetically it was informed by Masterpiece MP36 Megatron. And I can't really show you that anymore because, well, I had to sell my Masterpiece Megatron. More on that later. However, you don't need to have a Masterpiece Megatron to know what I mean by the uncanny valley. So when you start to have an issue with how Megatron looks, it is when you turn his head in any direction that is not straight on. So his head is very shallow. So it's his head. It's Megatron's helmet. It's all there, but it's very shallow. It just doesn't look right from certain angles. It's the head, but it's like kind of shrunken in from a length perspective. Not from a height perspective, not from a width perspective, but a length perspective. And I can, definitely prove that to you by showing you a figure that got it right. And it's a Hasbro produced figure. So here we have Red Megatron, who also, by the way, has a perfect fusion cannon. That's the fusion cannon right there on his arm. They did it. I don't know why. Even if it's a part of a transformation, why they couldn't have designed the fusion cannon to look like it's supposed to look. I mean, this is the signature villain of Transformers. And as you can see, Red Megatron even has the cartoon Decepticon logo. I mean, he's other than the fact that he doesn't transform and everything like that, he's pretty much exactly dead on to Megatron. But we're not here really to compare him to Studio Series 86 so much as we are just looking at the head. So if you look at his head straight on, it looks like Megatron. But if you turn the head to the side, it's not as crunched in. It's like just a tad longer. It has the correct proportion even from the side view. And that's what I mean. So, as long as you're looking at him from the front or the back, he looks fine. I'm not even talking about the kibble or the tank legs. I'm just talking about the head. It looks correct. But when you turn them to the side, that's when the head might, it's just not. It's just slightly lengthwise. It's just not. It's right off. It's close, but it's not 100%. Anyway, I've gone on about his head looking a little weird, but it's definitely not weird enough to be a deal breaker in by any stretch of the imagination. This figure is, you know, pretty much amazing. It's a leader class figure. I really can't say enough about it, especially once you get rid of that hideous fusion cannon. It's just, this is what you want in the mainline Megatron. Now, I've done a whole video about why Megatron has to turn into a tank and he can't turn into a gun anymore. And, you had a whole, all over the summer, you had a whole contingent of fans and loud mouths just talking about it's not Studio Series 86. If it doesn't turn into a gun, if it turns into a tank, it's not Studio Series 86. And on one hand, I agree with them, but on the other hand, well, that's not really true. Hasbro made this to be a Studio Series 86 Megatron, and that's what it is. Did he turn into a tank in the movie? No, he didn't. And is he a Transformers figure that transforms? Yes, he is. But nobody ever said you have to transform it. No one ever said you had to do it. You don't have to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it in this video. You will not see the tank mode other than in the box, the photo for the box. There's not going to be a tank mode in the video because I'm not turning it into a tank. If it needs to be a gun, it'll be this gun or another gun that I have that's a Megatron in gun form for photography or stop motion. That's what it is. He turns into a gun. I have no problem with Hasbro making it a gun. Making it a tank or whatever. If it was a G2 Megatron to turn into a tank, then I will turn it into a tank. This being G1 Megatron who didn't turn into a tank, I'm not going to turn it into a tank. But I'm also not going to, rail against it being Studio Series 86 or whatever. That's senseless. It's a senseless argument, and I'm pretty sure 90% of the people that screamed to high heaven about it were the first ones running in Target or Walmart or whatever to pick this guy up. So that's my editorial on that. So next up, we're going to get Megatron some comparisons before we get you out of here with some final thoughts. All right, first up for comparisons, we have Megatron with his traitorous lieutenant, Starscream. This is the coronation Starscream without the coronation gear. And, you should be able to immediately see an issue. Starscream is way too short. They decided to scale up these guys. And because they designed these guys 2 years before we see them, we already know kind of that they know what they're doing. So they would, set these little traps for you. Soundwave needs to be moved up to blaster height, yada, yada, yada. But in a vacuum, that means Soundwave is going to be out of scale because Blaster was out of scale. Blaster was the same height as the Kingdom Earthrise Optimus Prime or Earthrise Megatron. And of course, Blaster's really not that tall. It's not supposed to be that tall. Starscream and Soundwave are roughly the same height. So if you make Megatron and Optimus Prime bigger, they become too small. Which then led to fears that perhaps people would now have to rebuy their entire collection because they're going to scale up the entire Transformers line because they changed the heights of Optimus Prime and Megatron. Well, seems like it's going to be something like somewhere around half of that. Our next comparison is Blaster. This is the Studio Series 86 Blaster, and he is the correct height, more or less, in comparison with Megatron. And I say more or less because Megatron is actually even still a little bit bigger than he should be. Uh, Megatron is the same height as Optimus Prime, but this toy, as you will see, is even taller, if only slightly, than the Studio Series 86 Optimus Prime. So next up, we've got the aforementioned Studio Series 86 Optimus Prime, but he is wearing the MP44 main head from the KO Studio Series 86 Optimus Prime, which I did pick up, and the review for that figure is incoming. But you know, that's the. In fact, he's even holding the laser rifle of that one too. As you can see, it's like actually black. So I swapped them. But Megatron is slightly taller than Optimus Prime. And when they showed this figure, you know, Evan once again with his weasel words, like, I think we can accept that Megatron could be a little bit taller than Optimus Prime. And I said in response to that, as I watched the live stream, I guess we have to accept it since now that's what you've done. Because, you know, they're the same height. They're not different heights. In the Bayverse, Megatron is bigger than Optimus Prime, sure, but that's an altogether different thing. So that's the comparisons for now. There'll be more, you know, there'll be more comparisons. Megatron will certainly be making more appearances in future videos, so you'll see him in comparison to other figures for sure. But that is your scale, you know, kind of going forward. And it'll get better as we get new seekers and new sound waves, I'm sure. But for now, these guys are just a tad bit too big in comparison with some characters. Other characters, you can eyeball it, but some characters, it just doesn't look right. You know, Starscream just looks way too short. He just does. All right. I guess I've rambled on enough about that. Now we can move on to final thoughts. Final thoughts on Transformers Studio Series 86 Leader Class Megatron. Hey, you know, the figure is as advertised. I don't think it's a perfect figure, but my opinion definitely comes from perspective. You know, facts may differ. People may, you know, people are definitely going to have different perspectives on whether it's accurate, correct, or not. I know what I saw and watched on the Transformers cartoon and have watched on the Transformers cartoon my entire life from childhood to adulthood. And the things that are a tad bit askew are a tad bit askew. But the toy, the product itself, just from an appearance and uh, uh, you know, articulation standpoint for Transformers robot toy, it's, you know, it's a chef's kiss toy. The only problem I really have with it is the fusion cannon. I just think it's just objectively bad. And the head is just a little bit scrunched in from a width, from a like a length perspective. All that said, I've yet to, you know, there's a toy that'll come out and, you know, you just can't stop playing with it. I can't even say that about Studio Series 86 Optimus Prime. If you watch a lot of my Transformers uh, reviews, you know, I'll use him in size comparisons, and he was in the same pose like every time. That's a sign that, you know, he was basically standing somewhere in the same pose for like months and months. Not that I didn't like the figure, but I wasn't, you know, really all that motivated to play with it. Now that Megatron's here, of course, he's getting a lot more play. a lot more. But because Optimus Prime and Megatron are yin and yang, two sides of the same coin, Transformers doesn't even feel right with one without the other. I wish they had released these figures, more or less at the same time, but we had to wait a year for Megatron. Well, he's here now. Bring on Leader Class Soundwave, and we'll go from there. So that's going to do it for this one. Those are my thoughts. I'd certainly love to hear yours. Let's put it in the comments. Let's talk about it. In the meantime, we've got much more coming from Transformers. We've got the Constructicons to finish up. We've got the aerial bots to finish up. All these things are in various stages of shipping to me right now, so it's going to be in the very near future. I also have Onyx Prime and another Prime that I'm going to keep that one under my hat, but we've got plenty of Transformers content coming up on the channel, as well as hopefully some headway will be made on my Transformers stop motion series. But that'll do it for now. Till next time, everybody stay safe. Happy collecting. See you on the next video. Peace.
The way I got it figured.